Hey guys, today I'm going to go over a couple of things that you shouldn't do when you wire up a car, and how to avoid them, and how to save yourself some headaches. So this one, I'm going to say this one's got the coronavirus right now. I just finished up this big tire car, and this one is here. It was wired by another shop, and I'm going to preface this video here, and I'm going to tell you right now, one, I'm not going to tell you the name of the other shop. I'm not here to badmouth the other shop. I'm not here to put them down or anything. That means nothing to me. This is strictly for educational purposes. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm better than anybody. I learn something new every single day. I figured out the problems with this car, and I figured I would share them, and I talked to the owner of the car, and he said it was all right, so here we are. So again, I'm not going to go into who wired it. Don't bother messaging me. Don't badmouth them. Please don't start that. I don't want to deal with that. That's not the purpose of this video, okay? The purpose of this video is just like every other video I do. It's instructional. It's try to help y'all out. This is geared towards the guy who's wiring their car at home by themselves, or maybe some other shops that are new to Holley Efi installation. Maybe they could learn something, whatever. Anyway, this is a good time. I've had a couple of cars come to me from other shops that have been wired, and they have problems, and typically the problems are, they're easily avoidable, and we're going to go over them. But the reason this is a good time is this car and this car are surprisingly very similar, okay? So I'm going to go over the similarities here between these two. They're both big block Chevrolets. They're both twin turbo. They're both big tire cars. They're both on alcohol. They both have 850 pound-per-hour injectors. They're both really nice hot rods, right? Both make tons of power. Both of them Holley Dominator EFI. So I just finished this one up. This one's getting picked up here, I think in the next hour or so. And if you saw some of the other videos I've made, I just got this one fired up, running. Everything's good to go with this car. It's ready to go hit the dyno. And but this is a good opportunity to show the differences in how to go about things, and how to do them properly versus problematically, right? So both cars have smart coils. This one here, they're tucked way up in there, right? They're up underneath the header. And this is super important, and I'm going to show you the reasons on the blue car here in a minute. But there's three separate grounds per coil connector, right? And they all have a different purpose, right? So the first one we're going to talk about is the cylinder head ground, right? And as you can see, try to zoom in there. It's a little blurry, but you can see it right there. It's on the back of the cylinder head right there, right? It's a 10 gauge Tevzel wire that ties these four coil grounds to the cylinder head. There's one there, and then there's one here. All right, you kind of see it down there. Oh, there we go. Zoom way in. There it is. Okay. Those grounds are important. They have to be the only thing that is grounded to that cylinder head. All right, and it grounds to the cylinder head on the bank of coils that it's firing. The next ground is a battery ground, and it's going to be hard to see, but this car right here, we're using I'm using a firewall pass-through here, and this cable, we won't be able to follow it because the battery is actually up in here behind, or in between the wheels, but above the rear end. But that cable is a direct shot back to the negative post on the battery. Exactly how it's supposed to be, okay? The only other ground connection to that post is to the engine block, okay? It goes to the block. It's in a different spot than, obviously than the cylinder head. It goes to the block, and it goes directly back to the battery. And then our second ground that we have to be concerned with from the smart coils is from each bank is going to there, okay? And then the third ground is your EST ground, which is your logic ground in essence from the ECU, comes from J1, B14. Come over here, and right there, a little chart. There it is, EST ground out. Okay, so grounds are really, really, really important, all right? All power comes from ground. I harp on this a lot. Seems like half of people listen, half people don't. But anyway, this car, here's the smart coils, right? There they are. And the previous installer, he ran a 12 gauge GXL wire to the cylinder head, okay, for each bank, where you're supposed to, right? And this is where the problem lies. This is the way I got this car, so disregard I wouldn't have done this installation the way this is done. I'm not here to badmouth or anything. It's just a little sloppy, but it's better than some, you know, whatever. I'm not here to badmouth, all right? But here's one of the main issues. If you look down here, it's hard to see. That cable right there, it goes to right there, back of the cylinder head, all right? There's no other ground on this engine, all right? There's not a single other ground on this engine. And if we follow that cable down through that grommet, it comes in here, and it goes to this, right here, and it's labeled chassis ground, okay? Well, then we follow this cable, right? So it's this one right here, right there. It goes up to the back of the cylinder head. And then this cable here goes, you know, it's routed nicely, you know, whatever. There we go. And it goes to there. Okay, you can see it kind of do a, right there, 180 down there. Goes down around the bar and loops up and hits this chassis ground. Okay. All right, here's the issue. There's the battery. Okay. So if you guys have seen any of my other videos or paid attention to anything I've ever said, or any of the stuff that you see come from Shannon Davis or a lot of other guys in this industry that, you know, that know a thing or two about low voltage controls and DC systems, you see a couple problems with this, right? So the first problem is we don't have a dedicated battery lead to the ground, or to the block for a ground. Now, what should have been done in this scenario is one wire from the battery right here to this chassis post. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You should go to this chassis post, right? And then another wire from the battery. Don't think that just because they touch here it's the same thing. It's not, okay? Then another lead from the battery, and it would have came up along here. It would have bypassed all that stuff, right? And we would have went up to the block, okay? Not to the cylinder head, but down to the block. And there's nothing down on the block. We'll get to that. You know, I mean, I'm going to fix all this stuff, but there's a reason why you segregate them, okay? So you want to go down to the block. You don't want anything else grounded to the cylinder head here in this scenario, all right? And then the other major problem is this is Holley, and when you open up the box for your Dominator, it specifically says run your power and ground, the heavy gauge power and ground wires directly to the battery. If you notice, those are the only connections at the battery. That's it. So our power wire for Holley is on the output side of the switch, okay, for the contactor. And then our ground is to this chassis ground. So just because you ran that ground wire close to the battery, and then it goes to the battery via a 2-gauge cable, does not mean that you ran it directly to the battery. There's a difference, okay? So that's a simple fix. We just move it around a little bit, go up to the battery, no big deal. Probably wondering, man, well, none of this stuff seems that major, right? Well, we're going to get to some other issues with this, but here's the issue that we've got. Now, this customer had this car wired few months ago, and he's been trying to get on my schedule, and here we are. Well, that's a smart coil. This is his handwriting. No, as in no spark. Number 4, no, it's dead. Number 1, no fire on 3/7 of 2020. Number 2, no. Okay, so we got 2, 4, 6, and 1, and then we also have, I found this, well, when the customer dropped it off, he explained it to me, but number 5 is dead as well, okay? So, we've got some dead coils, and you can see, like, there's tape on them from when the original installer did it, and you can see there's new coils been put in place, and basically every time you shut the car off and turn it back on, you lose another cylinder. All right, another cylinder's dead, or another coil's dead, okay? This is a ground path problem, all right? The second part of this problem is that these coils were powered, or are still being powered, but won't be shortly, by, it's gonna be hard to see, but by the NOS branded solid state relays, right? Now, you don't want to do that. Don't do it. I'm not going to get into it, but just don't do that, okay? So, don't use these to power your coils. As much as I hate to say it, these cheap Chinese relays would have been a whole heck of a lot better to use to power them coils than those solid state relays down there. So, so don't do that. I have not investigated as to what the trigger is yet as to what turns that relay on and off, but I'll find that out shortly. Either way, don't do that. Don't power them off of these. The MSD 4-bank solid state relay, they work good to power coils. Leash Electronics makes a good relay block that'll power, does a good job of powering coils. Even your standard 40 amp 5-pin Bosch relay does a good job. Use 2 of them per bank, right? Or 1 of them per bank of 4. Sorry, two relays per 8 cylinders. So there's the first main problem that's been taking out some cylinders. Okay. The next thing, maybe it's just maybe people just don't understand this right here. If it's just hanging out floating here, this is the shield for the cam. Okay, look at that, and there she is. Right. Now, I can touch that. Now you have continuity across a ground path. Don't do that. You do a nice job, putting a heat shrink on here, right, to clean up this end, right? Which that's nice, right? Tuck your shield in, okay? Terminate your shield inside so they can't ground on anything, all right? And the same thing down here. I pulled it away, but this was sitting here when the car got dropped off. This was sitting here like that. Okay, now in the factory harness from Holley, or the unterminated harness, or the flying lead harness, or anything from Holley, a lot of y'all don't know this, but this shield wire is terminated with the ground pin. Okay, it's all tied together back to the ground pin, and it goes to let's walk on over here to the IPU ground of J1A14 right there. IPU ground, that's where it goes. So don't just leave your grounds loose and hanging and whatnot. All right, for the cam and the crank. So what I found was I had continuity. I have continuity with everything unplugged from the ECU. I got continuity on all 3 separate grounds on the coils to the cylinder head. Then I also have them, obviously if I've got them to the cylinder head, I've got them down to this chassis ground post. You don't want to do that, okay? There's also, on the cam and crank, and again, I haven't touched anything really with the car, haven't dug into it. This car, I'm gonna rewire this entire car. Everything's gonna come out of it. Unfortunately for the customer, I have to remove everything out of it in order for me to give it my blessing. But we've got continuity back to that sensor ground as well down there. Okay, through the cam and crank, which is that's not right. So anyway, and again, I'm sure I'll find why when I start pulling everything apart. Then the next thing I wanted to point out, again, a lot of times these are just common mistakes, and you know, and a lot of people do it. So I figured I might as well just make a video to kind of try to help everybody. But so Holley, you know, they sell an EGT kit, right, and a CAN bus EGT kit. There's a lot of companies that do, and race pack and whatnot, and everybody just kind of guesses at a length that's universal to work for everybody, right? But it really, there's not anything really wrong with this. It's just you can cut them down. You can cut these down and make it look a little bit nicer. The other thing is that you can also kind of zip tie these to something so they don't start banging all over the place, all right? So one thing that I noticed, what I do with every car, if it comes to me and it's already been wired, is I plug the laptop into it, I go online with the laptop, and I literally, I watch some sensor data, and I come under here and I just start grabbing stuff and shaking it and seeing if we get anything goofy. And sure enough, you know, I start shaking some stuff under here, and I got a weird TPS, erratic TPS changes, right? So it's swinging from 0 to 100 back to 0, right? So we got maybe a bad crimp or something. But again, I'm not claiming anything exactly as to what is causing that, because I haven't dug into it yet. But take your time when you do this stuff. You know, don't get in a hot rush. I mean, like I said many a times, you know, we're racing on a racetrack. We're not racing in the garage. So take your time, do this stuff right. The other thing, this connector for the wideband, this cable, you can cut this. You can shorten this. There's if you can see, we've got a lot. I mean, I don't know where we were going to go with it, but shorten this up, because otherwise what happens, the way it came in, the way the car came in, is this was crammed down here in this hole, right, way back in there, and it sat there like that, you know, kind of tied it up a little bit, right? It sat there like that, right? But what happened was we shoved 3.5 feet of it down up in here, and the reason I harp on this stuff, you know, you can call me a perfectionist or an idiot or whatever you want, I don't care, but this transmission has to come out. We've got to work in there, right? If that transmission gets hot, you got a bunch of stuff laid up against it because you left 3.5 feet too long on it, right? So don't be afraid to take your time and cut something down if you have to. Next thing I want to point out, this is an injector harness that was built to suit for the car, according to the customer. And if we look, there's an extra like 24 to 36 inches wrapped up under the intake. You know, it's kind of laying there. Well, this car is on alcohol. You know, a lot of people don't think about it, but alcohol, it'll eat up wire. And the lume that's on this is, you know, it'll hold a fluid, right? So it's semi-absorbent, and it's porous, right? And it's going to allow it to reach the wire up underneath of it and dry it out. And if you're going to use boots, these things aren't cheap. You know what I mean? They're probably $3-4 bucks a piece. These are a little bit, I don't know what brand these are. They're a little gummy, whatever it is. But like a Raycam boot, like what I use, I think they're about $4 bucks a piece. What's the point of booting it? Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? When wire's here, loose, exposed, you know? So, you know, just put a little bit of thought into what you're doing, slow down a little bit. You'll have a nicer, better functioning end result, right? And you know, here for reference, right, so there's a made-to-fit injector harness for this car, right? Or you take a little bit of time and you know, you do it right, right? So it's all sealed up. It's got a good boot on it, right? Now, it's not a necessity, you know, that's not a necessity. But when you take this rail off, guess what's coming out of that rail, right? I mean, if we look, breakouts are all, you know, sealed up, right? What's coming out of there is fuel. It's alcohol. So, you know, if something's going to have an extra 3 or 4 foot of a lead wrapped up underneath the intake, let's seal it up, right? So again, I'm really hoping that I don't get flooded with messages about, oh, who did this? Because I'm not going to tell you, it doesn't matter, right? It means nothing as to who did it, because anybody could have done this, right? So that's irrelevant. The purpose of this is to show y'all that no matter who you are, everybody makes mistakes, right? This scenario, this mistake has cost this customer a lot of time, a good bit of money, and even more money now because he's going to have to pay me to redo it. And now he's up to 5 dead coils, right? 5 dead smart coils. So slow down a little bit, right? And think about what you're doing, and make sure that you know, you look at it, and if you're going to send it out the door for a customer or something, look at it and go, oh, you know what, I'm actually proud of that, you know? I actually like that. You know, that looks good. For some of you guys that just, you know, you see something on Facebook and you go, oh man, that's sick, blah, blah, blah. Pay attention, you know? Here's the other O2 sensor. We're all coiled up in there. Got an extra 3 foot of lead. Just, you know, just pay attention to the little stuff, because the little stuff turns into big stuff when it stops working, okay? Especially when it starts burning up parts. You know, coils aren't a super expensive item, you know, 80, 90, 100 bucks a piece or something like that, but it certainly sucks when you buy something brand new and because you screwed something up when you wire it, you burn up half of what you just paid for. So, you know, and you certainly shouldn't have to carry 8 spares with you. So grounding's important. Oh, here, purpose of this video. Grounding is important. Take your time, and you know, and care about what you're doing on your own car, or you know, or customers or whoever's, right? Just give a crap, right? I mean, you know, look at it and say, you know what, I'm actually proud of that. So, because if you're actually proud of it and you focus on, you know, continuing to try to be better than you were yesterday, your customer will see that and appreciate it, and everybody else will see that and appreciate it. So, and you sleep better at night. So, but anyway, again, I'm not going to go into who did this. I'm not going to go into, you know, I'm not telling anybody. Don't bother messaging me. So, and if I see you, you know, commenting on here about, oh, it was this person or that person, you know, I'm probably just going to delete your comments. So, all right. Anyway, have a good one.